These 3 mind traps will pretty much guarantee a derailment of your mental health in 2024. Sadly, I can almost guarantee that. As many of you know, it is our daily thoughts and daily habits that pretty much dictate our present and our future. This idea might help you. Think of them as train tracks on which a train called your life and mental health is currently running on. Those habits or train tracks, the thoughts we have and the things we do on a daily basis, can guide our lives towards the better, the good, or can derail our lives towards the ugly. And that is something we need to fix ASAP. And do stay till the end because the last one might be the most important of the 3. The first mind trap that we need to address is thinking that we are the sole responsibles, that I am the sole responsible of my relationship with God. Think about it for a second. The issue is evident in the name itself. If you are the sole responsible of a relationship, then what you have is not a relationship. Let me say that again. If you are the sole responsible of a relationship, then whatever you have is definitely not a relationship. But the issue here is even more complex than we think. Because when we think of our relationship, especially our relationship with God, we automatically think of the number 2, person A and person B. And by doing so, we're off to a bad start when it comes to a relationship with God. Think of 3 instead. The first one is God, whom we believe are themselves 3. Then there's us, and then the third one is the church. It takes 3 in this relationship. And this is by divine design. I know this might sound counterintuitive when we're talking about our relationship with God, but there cannot be a relationship with God without the 3 persons involved. And as such, our relationship with God is not our sole responsibility. It's the responsibility of the 3. And that is a gift, the gift. And that is the point that I want to make. Because there are days, and you know what I'm talking about here. Days and even seasons where you cannot be responsible for anything, let alone a relationship with an invisible being. Seasons when you're definitely at the end of your rope, when you are barely holding on with not much else to give, when you feel that you're failing God, failing everyone, and failing yourself. When those horrible seasons come, the other 2 members of the relationship take the wheel, take the driver's seat in the relationship, and carry you towards restoration. That is how healthy and mature relationships work. We carry each other's burdens. Talking about Sunday services for a sec. This is one of the reasons why we have liturgies at church, to carry each other and to guide each other during the seasons. When you cannot pray, there are written prayers you can pray. There are songs you can sing. And there are also some songs that sing over you. Written confessions, the Eucharist or the communion we all partake from. Because when our brains and our hearts are depleted or overwhelmed, we can partake and eat Jesus. Shut up, I'm gonna cry right now. Unfortunately, many of these practices are becoming less and less common in many evangelical churches. Many churches have done away with those beautiful liturgies that carry people in seasons of darkness and seasons of pain. Remember, it takes 3 people in this relationship. 3 people who are giving their absolute best. But if you can't give your best in this season, it's okay. Just remember, you're not the sole responsible of your relationship with God. Disproportionate expectations. If you have been a Christian for more than 3 or 5 years, there is something really important you need to do. I have no idea what this means. You need to readdress your naive and over-optimistic Christian expectations. And this is even more critical if you grew up in church. What do I mean with this? Our first couple of years as Christians tend to be the most transformative years of our walks of faith. And that is the time where our expectations are formed. Our expectations of ourselves, of God, and of the church. It is in those early years that we define what the church is, what it does, how it functions, and what it should do for me and for the world. Who God is, how God functions, what God should do for me, and what God should do for the world. And finally, it is in those years that we define who we are in Christ, what we can do for God and what we can do for the world. Again, it is in these initial years as Christians that our expectations are created and defined. And even though that's completely normal, it is problematic because unconsciously throughout the week our souls keep getting crushed because we are not the people, the Christians we envisioned, we dreamed we would be. The church is not acting like I initially thought it could or should. And finally, God is not acting like I expected God would or should act. God is not responding in the ways I expected God to respond. Now, for many Christians, the reshaping of our Christian expectations happens naturally as we grow and mature. But to be honest, this process doesn't happen across the board, and it doesn't happen holistically and does not happen with everyone. We still have naive expectations that linger in our brains, in our hearts. So we live in this constant state of something is wrong. I feel like something is failing. And if you're like me, and like many Christians that I know, what we end up thinking that is failing, or who we end up thinking is failing, is me, is us. And we unconsciously walk throughout our weeks feeling like failures as Christians, all because we're measuring our reality to our initial naive expectations. So the thing that we need to do regularly is to sit down and think, am I expecting the same things of God, the church, and myself that I did at the beginning of my journey of faith? If so, should this still be the case? Are the expectations you have even fair? Are my expectations of the Bible fair? A very famous process called deconstruction will normally give you a nudge, push through this process whether you want it or not. But it doesn't always have to be this way. We can be proactive in this. Unconsciously comparing your current journey of faith with your initial expectations is cruel, and it would only set you up for failure. Thinking that there is no place for you in church if you're currently facing mental health challenges. We have done ourselves a horrible disservice by having a church culture that hides its mental health struggles, especially when we have some sort of leadership position. And even though, and this is not a secret, there are many pastors and church leaders who are currently now struggling with their mental health on a daily basis and yet lead and help many people daily. There are hundreds of pastors, priests, deacons, you name it, all sorts of church leaders who are currently on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications. And so far, it's working out for them. Being a church leader and taking anxiety medication is not an oxymoron. They are not mutually exclusive. But it is sad that many of us have been taught the exact opposite of that. And it is so unfortunate that there's still so much stigma when it comes to mental health challenges at church. But I am here to tell you, have a conversation with your counselor. And if you both think it's a good idea, why don't you start leading and serving at church once again? Hundreds of people would much rather have you listening to them and helping them than someone else who cannot be honest with their own weaknesses. And by the way, you don't need to be talking from stage or taking huge responsibilities at church to serve others. And I know you know that. Being a companion to people who are currently struggling is one of the best gifts we can offer in life. For many people who are going through that dark night of the soul, having a happy all the time person who apparently has it all together by their side is the last thing they want. Most people need someone who could recognize their pain and share it with them. The habit of constantly disqualifying ourselves from helping others due to mental health challenges will seldom help us recover and move forward. There are ways in which we can help each other in ways that are life-giving to both parties. Now, if you're currently struggling with your mental health or simply want to explore this topic more in depth, there is a wonderful course called the Sanctuary Course. This is a great free training aimed at equipping people from a theological and scientific perspective on the topics of mental health and well-being. You can take this training as an individual or as a group. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. Now, if you feel up for it, click on this video and I'll see you there. Or not. Just close your computer, close your cell phone, open the doors, go outside, breathe fresh air, and I'll see you next time. Peace.